president. What kind of tone did the president take when he saw those numbers on Friday?
Hi, Emily. So certainly celebratory tones that from the White House and from the president and from the market, stock market, frankly. We have the Federal Reserve had cut interest rates over 3 times by now. We've got record unemployment, and the Dow Jones closed at 28,000 points, which has never happened before. And so the president, of course, was highlighting this while mocking the Democrats in their impeachment proceedings yesterday. So he tweeted, another record stock market 21 times this year, meaning we broke the record 21 times just in 2019. Despite an ongoing and totally unfounded witch hunt and a Democrat Party that would love to see a nice, big, juicy recession. In actuality, the potential for the U.S. is unlimited. We will power through the do-nothing Democrats. So hours into the hearing, Emily, it was clear that the star witness of Adam Schiff's entire impeachment proceedings, Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, she had no evidence. And it was clear as we were watching that she wasn't going to provide any evidence that the president had done anything impeachable. Once the market saw this, there was a lot of, they went forward and started, it was a bull market. And in seeing that, Yovanovitch, the star witness, brought nothing new to the table, nothing new to the discussion of impeaching President Trump, nothing new by way of any kind of crime that the president might have committed. The stock markets reacted to this and went up. And frankly, the president was early to catch this trend on and mock the Democrats in his response by saying, look at what they're doing. They're doing this they're committing themselves to entangling themselves into a storyline that has no evidence, no basis in truth, and the markets are just not buying it. And so that was really the lesson that we watched unfurl as Yovanovitch gave her 5-hour testimony.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Chanel. At this point, it seems some Americans are just over the impeachment process seeming to go nowhere. I mean, last week's hearing captivated the nation. There were millions of people tuning in to see if the Democrats could back up their claims with any evidence that President Trump committed a crime. But instead, we saw Republican lawmakers over and over again asking Yovanovitch if she had anything substantial to share with the Intel Committee. And as we saw, it was pretty evident she didn't have much substantial information at all when it comes to the actual focus of the probe, that July phone call between Trump and Zelensky. And we actually saw when Representative Devin Nunes was questioning her, she said she was, one, not involved in the preparations for the call. She wasn't listening to the call, right, and she hasn't even spoken to President Trump this year. Now, needless to say, these impeachment proceedings are certainly unique in nature, but looking at this historically, how much has impeachment news affected the stock market in the past?
Well, we have to look at, first off, what the market reacts to when it comes to these proceedings on Capitol Hill. And the markets tend to react to substance. And seeing that there was no substance yesterday, they were acting true to form, meaning they will react if there's substantive evidence showing that the president is indeed going to be impeached. Seeing that there was no substance, the market reacted predictably. Now, Pelosi has promised 2 things. When she announced that these impeachment proceedings were going to go forward back in September, she promised that there would be bipartisan support. And secondly, she promised that they were going to find evidence that President Trump did something wrong, that did something constitutionally in violation of his duties. She has provided thus far 0 of those 2 things. As far as bipartisan support, the market is watching her make these promises and her fail at it. This bipartisan support failed miserably when these impeachment inquiries were put up to a vote. Not only did she not get bipartisan support, 2 of her Democrats broke off and joined the Republicans in opposition to impeachment. Now, historically, you look at Nixon when he was going through Watergate, the stock market plunged. It took a nosedive. The markets saw that there was some substance to the accusations, did not see that Nixon had a future, and they took a dive. Under Clinton, Bill Clinton, we had once the market saw that indeed Clinton had lied and that Newt Gingrich had bipartisan support. He had 32 Democrats joining him in the impeachment proceedings. The stock markets took a dip. Now, it went up and down under Clinton, but again, Markets respond to substance. They're not seeing substance under Pelosi and Schiff's impeachment proceedings. And so as a result, they're reacting in kind.
Yeah, so since, like you said, markets react to substance, are there any other policy-driven factors from the White House that may have affected these high numbers on Wall Street this week?
Certainly. So we have three things that are just, three major issues. China trade seems to be going in a good direction. The China trade talks with the United States, the markets seem fairly optimistic that we're going in a positive direction as far as resolving some of our trade disputes with China. That's a huge element. Number two, we had Pelosi on Thursday all of a sudden announce, and in a way it seemed like she was almost admitting defeat for the impeachment efforts, but she announced that USMCA, the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, was indeed going to go forward, and that they might actually pass USMCA by year's end. This was also a very good sign for the markets. And lastly, we had the White House announce their new rule regarding health care, where they are taking away any semblance of non-transparency by hospitals. So the White House has put out a rule: hospitals must show and publish their expenses, their costs, their doctor's visits, no hidden costs to the American people. And that ruling really was an overlooked item from this week, because everyone's looking at impeachment. But that issue, that rule, really affected insurance stocks and health and tech stocks. And so as a result, there was a lot of confidence saying this is a good thing for America and for these stocks. And so healthcare and technology really led the way in the boost that we saw on closing bell yesterday on Wall Street.
Chanel, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for spending some of your Saturday with me, and we definitely look forward to more reports from you in Washington. Now, moving on to more